Happy Halloween, ghostlings. Let's just party on a roll. Places, creepy, ghostly, and notorious spots. And if you're watching this today, it's most likely Halloween, so happy spooktacular Halloween, everyone. So I'm going to read to you this spot right here. We already tried to do this video once. Hopefully it's going to turn out correctly this time. Otherworldly, New Orleans, Louisiana. So I'm going to read this little chapter here, this little part. Just below, a ghostly figure walks Pirate's Alley, formerly home to the likes of William Faulkner, who wrote his first novel there, Bottom. The interior of the New Orleans Historic Voodoo Museum, right. St. Louis Cemetery, number 1, where the Voodoo Queen Marie Laveau is entered. So that would be this cemetery right here. I'm going to read this at the bottom. What major U.S. city advertises rental apartments as haunted or not haunted? As if ghosts were like air conditioning or a 24-hour doorman. If you guessed Boston, you are wrong. We're talking, of course, about New Orleans, Louisiana, or New Orleans, where spirited real estate sales are among the many reasons why the port city between the Mississippi River and the lake is considered the most unearthly urban enclave in the United States. How did the Crescent City become a ghost town? Literally. Maybe it has something to do with its mix of spiritual traditions, Native American, French, Spanish, Creole, Cajun, not the least voodoo, and African religious and Catholicism. Or maybe it's the fact that because the water table is so high, tombs called City of the Dead are all built above ground, leaving restless spirits to roam the steamy streets. There's a ghost story or a library of them on virtually every corner. Hear from the spirit of unalived suicide that haunts the Louisiana National Guard Armory, to the legend of the Marie Laveau voodoo entered in the St. Louis Cemetery, number 1, not long ago. A New York magazine editor in the city for a convention came to the city for a convention, crawled into her hotel bed one night, and immediately felt the presence of a man beside her. When he wrapped his arms around her, she too terrified to scream, and stayed awake in his arms until sunrise, when he vanished. Maybe hotels here should take a cue from rentals, advertising haunted and unhaunted rooms along with breakfast. The Witch Hunt Village, Salem, Massachusetts. Now we're going to start on this next page. The devil came to me and bid me serve him, said Tituba, the Caribbean slave who was working for Salem Village's minister, Samuel Parris, when his young daughter and niece began to suffer fits in the winter of 1692, supposedly influenced by the Cajun woman's fortune-telling. The girls and their friends were soon called victims of witchcraft. Thus the town's notorious witch hysteria began, driven by every increasing accusation from the possessed girls. The Salem court convinced and hanged 19 townspeople found guilty of witchcraft in 1692. But not all of these souls went specifically to their unhallowed graves. In fact, 3 of them uttered hellish curses that believe to be afflicted Salem to this day. A beggar named Sarah Good, having lost her unborn child in jail after convicted of witchcraft in June 1692, was brought to the gallows hill with 4 other witches in July, when Reverend Nicholas Noyes tried to inflict a confession. A furious Goodwin shouted, "I am not more a witch than you are a wizard, and if you take away my life, God will give you blood to drink." In 1717, so tradition holds, Noyes suffered an internal hemorrhage and choked to death on his own blood. More than 100 years later, Nathaniel Hawthorne, a descendant of the witch-hunting judge John Hawthorne, used this curse to foul the plot of his 3rd novel, The House of Seven Gables, the name of a Salem house that still stands. In the introduction to The Scarlet Letter, Hawthorne apologized for his ancestors' actions. A so-called warlock hurled imprecation to "Damn you, Sheriff," the elderly Giles Corey shouted as he was fatally crushed under stones placed on wooden planks in a field near Howard Street. Opposite, Marion Starkey, author to The Devil in Massachusetts, on Gallows Hill in Salem, Massachusetts in 1949. Top. A tombstone in the old burying point, also known as Charter Street Cemetery, the resting place of many involved in the witch hunts. Above, an illustration of the play Giles Corey by Mary E. Wickens. Corey was an elderly suspect warlock put to death during the Salem witch trials by being crushed to death. So this is like a tomb, like in crescent. And this, I guess, is part of the play, or the picture of the play. Possibly the site of the current Howard Street Street Cemetery. I curse you in Salem, Hawthorne again. Tradition was long current that the ghost of Giles Corey, the wizard, appeared on the spot where he had suffered as the prosecutors of some that was impending over the community. He was reportedly seen, for instance, in the Howard Street Cemetery the night before the Great Salem Fire of July 25, 1914, which left half the towns homeless. Corey was tortured for 2 or 3 days by High Sheriff George Corwin, who was orchestrated by the town after the trials. When Corwin died of a heart attack in 1696, his family, not wishing to risk a vandalized grave, entered him in his basement on this same site now occupied by the Joshua Ward House. Naturally, or should we say supernaturally, it's haunted. In the 1970s, according to Rosemary Allen Goley, I hope I'm saying that right, author of Haunted Salem, the last man to serve in the office of sheriff, the office no longer exists. Robert Alice Cahill investigated the curse and wrote that all sheriffs, as far as back as he could trace, either died in office of heart problems or retired with an element of the blood. In 1978, Cahill's own stint as sheriff was cut short by heart disease. Another accused witch seemed to predict a future. "This town shall burn," shouted Wilmot Red, who was among the final 8 victims to be hanged on Gallows Hill on September 22nd, 1692. Many years later, of course, Salem did in the aforementioned fire, but none of these doomed townsfolk would ever have thought to curse Salem with tourists, calling it bewitching. Not to mention a 3D haunted adventure or a tour house that claims we're bringing scary back. One doubts Corey's ghost would agree with that assignment. There is even, heaven forbid, a statue of Elizabeth Montgomery, star of TV's Bewitched, honoring the episode of the popular show that was shot in the village where all hell broke loose, perhaps literally in 1692. Sewing pins were supposedly used by witches to torture their victims. Above 1697, Modern Inquiry into the Nature of Witchcraft by John Hall, a minister who supported the trials, until his second wife was accused of witchery in an event that helped bring an end to the hysteria and deaths. "We walked into the clouds and could not see our way," Hal later wrote. So that's that right there. And these are the pins. If you like videos like this, then stay tuned till next time. Happy Halloween, y'all. Sweet nightmares. Sweet dreams. Shall I say? Happy Halloween.